These are the resolutions of the September 1872 Saint-Imier Congress. It is often regarded as the birthplace of the anarchist movement. To understand the significance of this Congress, we first need to locate it in its context. In 1864, the International Working Men's Association was founded in order to establish ties between workers in different countries. At the 1869 Basel Congress, the majority of delegates voted in favour of the collective ownership of land as a goal. This was an expansion of the standard socialist position that the means of production should be owned in common. The socialists who advocated the collective ownership of land refer to themselves as collectivists or advocates of collectivism. A tendency emerged within the collectivist wing of the International that, between the mid-1870s and early 1880s, came to be known as Anarchism. The anarchist tendency within the International began to form a distinct social movement during a series of congresses held in Spain, Switzerland, and Italy. During these congresses, delegates passed resolutions that rejected the strategy of achieving socialism by participating in elections specifically and the conquest of state power in general. From November 1871 onward, Congress resolutions were passed that opposed Marx and Engels' attempt to convert the General Council of the First International, which was supposed to perform only an administrative role, into a governing body that imposed state socialist decisions and policies on the organization's previously autonomous sections. Marx and Engels thought this was necessary due to, among other reasons, their false belief that Bakunin was conspiring to take over the organization and impose his anarchist program onto it. The conflict between the opponents and supporters of the General Council culminated in the International September 1872 Hague Congress. The Congress was rigged in advance by Marx and Engels to ensure that they had a majority of votes. This fake majority passed a series of resolutions that expelled the anarchists Bakunin and James Guillaume from the organization, relocated the General Council from London to New York, and committed the organization to the goal of constituting the working class into a political party aimed at the conquest of political power. Shortly after the end of the Hague Congress, delegates representing the Spanish, French, Italian, Jura, and American sections of the International met at a congress in Saint-Imier, Switzerland. The goal of the congress was to reorganize the International on its original federalist basis. The delegates voted in favor of 4 resolutions. The first resolution rejected every resolution of the Hague Congress and the authority of the new General Council in New York. The second resolution declared a pact of mutual defense, solidarity, and friendship between the sections that attended the meeting and any section that subsequently wished to join. This pact consisted of a commitment to be in regular correspondence with one another and to stand in solidarity with any section whose freedom was violated by either government repression or the imposition of an authoritarian General Council. The only distinctly anarchist resolutions were the third and fourth. They advocated a social revolution that abolished capitalism and the state simultaneously, and established the Free Federation of Free Producers. This transformation of society was to be achieved by workers themselves, organized within trade unions and autonomous communes. It was proposed that workers in the present should build toward the social revolution by organizing strikes. These forms of class struggle were advocated because they caused workers to develop an awareness of their distinct class interests, taught workers to act for themselves, and increased the power of workers against capitalists. Strikes prepared workers for the social revolution and established or expanded the systems of organization through which workers could successfully overthrow the ruling classes and reorganize production and distribution. The resolutions rejected the strategy of attempting to achieve socialism via the conquest of state power, because it would result in workers being dominated and exploited by a new minority of rulers who actually exercise state power, rather than the abolition of all systems of class rule. The organization was nonetheless not an exclusively anarchist one, and soon came to include a minority of state socialists. Each section had the right to decide for themselves what form of political struggle they engaged in. Over time, arguments between anarchists and state socialists became increasingly heated, until state socialists left the organisation. It was not until the final 1877 Verviers Congress of the International, which was attended by delegates representing anarchist groups in France, Switzerland, Italy, Germany, Spain, Belgium, Greece, and Egypt, that the delegates were exclusively anarchist. Anarchist-led sections in Argentina, Mexico, and Uruguay had affiliated with the International but did not send delegates to the Congress due to the distance. During the Verviers Congress, the anarchist delegates passed a series of resolutions that completely separated them from state socialism and thereby established anarchism as a fully distinct social movement, rather than merely one tendency within a pluralist international. In many respects, the Verviers resolutions were almost exactly the same as the resolutions adopted 5 years previously at Saint-Imier. There was one crucial difference. The delegates at Saint-Imier had qualified their critique of achieving socialism via the conquest of state power with a commitment to different views on political struggle coexisting within the same pluralist international. The resolutions of Verviers were in comparison actively hostile to state socialism. The resolutions declared that there is no difference between political parties, whether they are called socialist or not. All these parties, without distinction, forming in its eyes one reactionary mass, and it sees its duty as fighting all of them. It hopes that workers who still travel in the ranks of these various parties, instructed by lessons from experience and by revolutionary propaganda, will open their eyes and abandon the way of politics to adopt that of revolutionary socialism. As always, the sources are in the description, which this time includes my own book. Far more detailed references are provided in that. It is available for free online, and if you want, I strongly suggest you buy a copy from AK Press and support Radical Publishing.